Okay. Hi, everyone. This is the second episode of Pomegranate Seeds, and my name is Jen. And I think I should have asked this before I recorded. But do you want me to use your last name, or do you just want to use your first name?
Yes, please.
Okay. I am here with my second guest, Dustin Vann. Icon.
Hey, divas.
Yeah, known him since my Quiz Bowl days when I had to answer random trivia questions, and we would never watch the PowerPoints we would never read the PowerPoints that he would send us.
But I will say I was the coach that brought you guys to state champions. That made you state champions. So there's that. There's that.
But also, I think it's also because one of our teammates knew an ungodly amount of info. Because not that you weren't a great coach, but we were awful.
Yeah, I'm like, damn girl, downplaying my accomplishment. That is on my resume. Okay.
that you took us to state.
No.
Oh.
Can you imagine though?
Yeah. So, like, what are your experiences with leadership? I'll have you know.
Oh, I thought you were literally asking me that right now. I'm like, what kind of podcast are we doing? I was like, this is not what you told me we're going to be talking about.
So I wanted us to talk about Wicked because
talk about Wicked.
Oh, do you have a sticker?
Yeah.
Can I see it?
Yeah. It's the closest I could find to the holding space thing.
I would get a shirt from that. Or
I got this downtown actually at Love of Character here in Lawrence.
There's a store called Love of Character?
Yeah, I got like all these stickers. Not this one.
Where is the store located?
It's like further down, kind of close to Urban Outfitters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Urban Outfitters, have you seen like the entrance where the glass looks like it's been broken? Like shattered, but they're just like, we didn't fix it.
Yeah, when I lived here, I didn't go in there a lot, but every time I did, I was like, is that part of like Urban Outfitters aesthetic now, or like what's happening here? But it's kind of further down that downtown strip, so I kind of thought like, oh, maybe it's just the vibe down there, I guess.
Maybe.
Do they have any Wicked stuff in Urban Outfitters?
I haven't even been. I think the last time I went was the summer. No, last winter. I went last winter and I found like this cool pair of sunglasses, and they weren't like priced. Like they didn't have any label. And I think the guy just didn't want to go through the effort, so he's like, just take them, like. And I'm like, yay! So they're over there. I'll show them to you later. It's like this cool shade of like blue sunglasses.
I wish I got that lucky when I went into stores. People be like, hey, you can have this for free.
Well, when we were at Burger Stand, the guy who was giving it, like, because you know how you have to pick up your food literally like from the line, like there's no one to then like put it on a table for you like you used to. The guy just kind of like would put them out like not super well for the people, and then he saw me coming to get my fries and he pushed them a little forward for me so I didn't have to like.
Well, what he did for me when I went down there, he was like, Dustin, and I'm like, yeah, and then he
no,
he looks kind of cute.
He is okay.
I don't know. You know who is cute though? More than cute. Fierro, aka Jonathan Bailey.
Yeah. No, I could see that. Which actually, to circle back, so
to what we're actually here for.
You know, when me and Danny did like the last episode, I had always wanted to talk about, like, I think what had started the whole idea of the podcast was talking about how, like, Sex and the City, I feel, is a very, like, misinterpreted show where the whole point of Sex and the City is to fight back on the views that marriage, partnership, having kids is, like, the ultimate, like, end game and the result that all adults should want to have, right?
Yeah.
And I think that one thing I had noticed is that a lot of the fans, especially, like, younger fans, were applying still those like more dated views on relationships to the show, right?
Yeah.
So that was like what had inspired it, but I think like I had kept Wicked at the back burner of my head because granted, when something comes out on TikTok and it becomes mainstream in a certain way, it's gonna, like, at least for like a couple of days, it's going to take center fold into the conversation people are having.
Part of the zeitgeist, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that Wicked had a lot of things to talk about that I think I found really interesting, because I felt like there was a lot of divided views on not only a lot of the things that occurred outside of filming, right? But also
Allegedly.
But I think but I think that there were also, like, no, thank you for, reducing the likelihood of me getting sued. I don't think I would, but
we'll get into it, but I'm an Arianator, for anybody that knows what that means, which we'll get into more in a minute.
I'm neutral. I do like the song Thank You Next. And
Basic.
And God Is a Woman. And I did like her as Kat in Victorious. So I feel like that's kind of where my, am I an Arianator?
No, because you said Arianator and not Arianator.
Oh, it's Arianator.
So you're not an Arianator.
And I did like the have you heard of the Arigato Grande look that she wanted to pull out, but people were, didn't like the look.
Yes.
I do like the memes that come out from that. That one's pretty funny. But I did want to talk about it because, I saw the movie, and
how many times did you see it?
One.
Okay. Well, I only saw it twice.
Oh, okay.
I thought about watching it again before we came here to record this.
Same.
Because now it's like you can buy it on like digital or something, but like seeing it in the theater was just such a great experience that like I want to watch it again, but like I wanted to watch it again in the theater. Like,
is there a showing right now?
Let's just go. Let's just pause this.
We going after? No, I think, like, obviously, I'll be honest, like, I don't hold, like, I think
hold
a lot
space.
I'm not holding space for Defying Gravity. There's one at 640. I just think, like, I think, and we'll talk about it one day, but I think that Wicked sometimes falls under, like the whole situation with it, the whole alleged situation with It Ends With Us, right? Where I think, like, people's personal opinions on celebrities really can shape how they view the projects that they partake in. And I think, like, in one way, I don't want to, I would say, I don't know, I'm iffy on that, because I get that people are allowed to have their own opinions in regards to people's behavior. I think especially when you become a public figure.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, like, I think there needs to be more nuance when you critique their work, right? Because they could be a terrible person, or they could be a great person, but also they might have a great performance or a bad performance. It's kind of like the whole situation with Selena Gomez and the Emilia Perez movie. Have you seen that? I haven't seen the movie.
Yes, unfortunately.
My boss says to watch the movie because he really liked it. And I haven't watched it yet, but I think I heard that her performance wasn't as great, particularly in the Spanish part. And I think because she frames herself as a relatively, like, nice celebrity, right? People are like, you're bullying her when people are critiquing the performance. And I think it applies vice versa when you have a celebrity who does a great performance, but maybe, like, personally in their life, they're not, like, maybe they don't do the greatest things, or they can just be problematic, right? I think sometimes people let that dictate the person's performance. And I think, again, you're allowed to have your own view on it, but I think, again, like, you have to, I guess we'll continue the conversation with that. Like, can you separate the personal life of this person from their professional? But I did want to talk about Wicked. There's a lot of angles that I want to talk about Wicked with you today.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
The first thing that we have on the list. Oh my god, he's a lot. what are our relationships to Wicked prior to watching the film?
Okay. I'll. Can I go first?
Yeah, of
okay.
course.
So there's sort of, I'm coming at this from like multiple directions.
Okay.
Like my emotional investment in Wicked, my personal investment. So first and foremost, love The Wizard of Oz. I've loved The Wizard of Oz since I was like a young kid, born and raised in Kansas.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are like born and raised in Kansas, like they kind of like resent the fact that The Wizard of Oz is like the first thing that people bring up to them when they're like, oh, I'm from Kansas. And they're like, oh, The Wizard of Oz. And some people kind of like roll their eyes at that. That's never been me. What about you? Have you ever felt that way?
No, it's like, you know, it's like our call to fame, right? When people think of Kansans.
Yeah,
right?
I wish it was actually filmed in Kansas, because when I was younger, I thought that at least the Kansas part was filmed. And it wasn't.
Where was
it
it
was
filmed?
all in California.
Oh.
On the MGM lot. So that's like, I've always loved the story and the world of like The Wizard of Oz. And like the other thing about that movie that relates to Wicked specifically is The Wicked Witch of the West. And like a lot of people, like when they were younger, they're like, oh my God, she used to like scare the shit out of me. Like, I never felt that way. I couldn't really put this into like thought until like I was older and like stepped into my queerness. But I think she was kind of one of my first like queer icons. And now when I watch the movie and she like appears and disappears like through like the fiery smoke and like she gets on her broom and like flies around, I'm like, this is really cunty.
Yeah.
Like, so that's like the first piece for me. Have always loved The Wizard of Oz, the movie, all of that. Second, I just love witches in general. Like, Charmed was my favorite show, like, growing up. If I could be, like, any mythical creature, I guess, and you want to count a witch, like, I would want to be a witch.
Okay.
So, love that. And then the third piece is my introduction to Wicked was through my being a fan of Ariana Grande. Because...
Okay.
I feel like I probably was aware of Wicked when I was younger, but since I'm a 90s baby and grew up at a time when like being out when you were in like middle school and stuff was like not a thing.
Yeah.
My sort of love for musical theater blossomed late. Like I watched like Hairspray and Legally Blonde when I was younger, but that was because my sister really liked those musicals and High School Musical as well. Yeah. But like it was never like, oh my God, I love it. So all of that to say, I wasn't really on the Wicked train like maybe some people my age were that young. And it wasn't until I got into Ariana Grande's like music career, because on her first album, if you are a true Arianator, you know this, she has a song called Popular Song, which which a lot of people really shade and say that it's bad, but I love it. I'm a fan of it. It interpolates Popular, like the song from Wicked. So that was kind of when I learned like, okay, like this is really important to like someone that I'm a fan of. Yeah. So like, let me see what this is all about. And then like I finally saw the show, like a touring production of the show in 2022. And that was like right after it was announced that her and Cynthia had been cast in the film. So I was like, okay, now I really have to lock in and like watch this. And like, then I started listening to like the cast album.
Is it the one with Idina Menzel?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's like my very long answer to that question, but I think it's important based on what we may get into later.
I know for me, like I was one of those like choir, you know.
You were a musical girly.
Yeah, I was a musical.
You were living my dream.
Not super. So I liked choir, but I felt like truth be told, I felt like I'm guessing this is just the norm for any high school theater group. I just didn't like the culture. It was very, I would say, for a space that you would think would be inclusive, it really was not. It was really not. But I kind of got into musicals, and there's like this memory I have when I was a sophomore, and me and some peers in choir, we went to Chicago to go see West Side Story. And I don't remember if it was like on the way back or when we were going to no, not Chicago, St. Louis, sorry.
Okay.
But there was this girl who oh my god, basically like had it in her head that she always had to be Glinda. She was just destined to be Glinda. And I believe that either she or this other friend had the Wicked like music book, like the score book where you could have the songs and he gave you like the notes so you could like sing them.
Yeah.
And she was like, "You guys have to take turns being Alphaba because I'm always gonna be Glinda." And I was like, okay. I mean, kind of checks out the personality, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's a very Glinda thing to say.
But that's like my core, I think, memory with Wicked. I think later, my senior year maybe, they did Wizard of Oz.
Like the musical version of it.
Yeah.
Which I've never seen, actually. Like,
no, me neither.
I didn't know for the longest time that there's a musical version of the Wizard. That's like not the movie.
I know there's also another iteration called The Wiz.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen The Wiz as well.
Yeah. But yeah, they did Wizard of Oz, and she had told everyone that she was going to be Glinda. You know, now we're 2 years in the future. She's like, I have to be Glinda. I don't remember if she got a call back. I know she didn't get it, but I don't even know if she got a call back or not.
Ooh.
But yeah, that's kind of my stint. I did really like Idina Menzel.
Oh yeah.
I feel like she did a really good job in the role. But really like not as like, you know how I feel like every theater person who's into musicals, or just any person like who's into musicals, has that one musical that they're like really obsessive over.
Yeah.
It just was not me with
What
Wicked.
is yours? What is yours?
It's kind of unknown one, so.
Girl, just say it.
It's called
You're in good company.
It's called The Scarlet Pimpernel.
Okay, I've heard of it.
It's basically like based on like the French Revolution. It's really cool. Their like opening song is about like Madame Guillotine, and supposedly in the stage like instructions during like the opening number, they're supposed to bring out a guillotine. Like
Slay.
Either like
literally.
Yeah. What about you?
My I guess now I would say it's Company, which is a Stephen Sondheim musical. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay, it's like I won't get too in the weeds about it, but it's like this concept musical, like this single guy. It started out as a guy, but then they recently did a gender swapped like revival where the main character is a woman.
Yeah.
And it's their 35th birthday. They're single, and all of their friends are like in couples and stuff. And yeah, like literally us talking about this at lunch before we started recording, like being the perpetual like single one, and like so they like are sort of like a fly on the wall to all of their couple friends like relationship dynamics, and then like them trying to figure out like if they want to be in a relationship, all that. So
real.
Yeah. But to bring it back to Wicked really quick, and you talking about your friend like wanting to be Glinda, this makes me think of a question that I have for you.
Okay.
We've got to do our big three, like big three astrology, but with Wicked characters from the movie.
Okay.
From the movie. I have mine. Do you need a second to think?
I need a second, but definitely, please start.
Okay, so for me, because I've thought about this, so in real life, I'm a double Virgo, so a rising and a sun Virgo, and then a Sagittarius moon.
Okay.
So with that being said, I think I'm a double Alphaba and then a Fanny moon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Fanny is Bo and Yang in the movie, in case you didn't know.
So, okay, I think for me, just to give a little bit of context, Danny, really close friend of mine, and
We love
Dustin,
Danny.
is really into astrology, so I've learned a lot. And I've even taught a Spanish unit on astrology.
You're doing a service.
Yeah, doing the Lord's work.
Oh, yeah.
But, so I'm a Taurus sun, Libra moon, and a Virgo rising.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew about the Virgo rising.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been told that I seem very, standoffish when people don't know me.
Okay.
Or that I seem like I'm very put together, and then...
So does that mean you're an Alphabet rising? Am I stepping on your answer?
So, okay, here's what I would say. I think that I am an Alphabet rising.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a Glinda moon. And then I think, what's his name? Froyo? No, not Froyo. Frollo? No, what's
Fiero!
Oh! I think I'm a Fiero son.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, when he talks about, guys, we just gotta chill, enjoy life, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's very me. A part of me is guys, let's just vibe. It's really not that deep.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Virgo Alphabet rising is it is that deep.
She's
actually.
Yep.
And then I feel like the reason why I feel like I'm a Glinda moon is because I'm inherently very diplomatic. I want to appease all parties. Especially if there's conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I always say I'm Switzerland.
Okay.
In most instances.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you think that's if it checks out, but
hey, I mean, it's all in the eyes of the beholder. For me, I'm and this sounds the most basic answer, but I've always identified the most with Elphaba, and just sort of her central conflict of feeling like an outsider and just wanting more for her life and breaking free from that. So
I think I like her character because I feel like a lot of marginalized people can really relate to the feeling of always being made to feel like an outsider or excluded just by some physical aspect that you hold that you can't really control, right?
Yeah.
And no, I definitely do want to talk about how we view her role overall in the story, because I think I talked to you about the whole Ben Shapiro thing, where he kind of went on a tangent. But to kind of move things along, I wanted to talk about Wicked through different perspectives. And the first perspective that I did want to talk about was a lot of the film techniques that are used in the film.
Okay.
In particular, I thought costuming would be an interesting avenue to start with.
Yeah.
I looked up a couple of quotes from the costume designer Paul Tazwell on his whole view with designing the costumes for the characters.
Yeah.
He said, so before I kind of go into his views on Elphaba, I'm going to give you a statement that he made in regards to how he dressed both Glinda and Elphaba, and we can kind of start there.
Okay.
Where he views Glinda as air, and he views Elphaba as earth, is how he labels both figures.
And you know what is an earth sign? Virgo. Just saying. Just saying.
And you know what's an air sign? Libra.
What's Taurus? Oh, Taurus is a earth sign. Yes. Yep. You, me, and Capricorns. Shout out to all the Capricorns out there.
Honestly, they're gotta get us a Capricorn day,
Let's just pretend your cat is a Capricorn.
He's not. He's a Sagittarius.
Okay, I can see that. Yep, the fieriness.
My other cat's a Gemini, which is why I think we vibe a lot, because I'm a Taurus.
Right. Yeah, you're
So,
very close in the
yeah.
like, star signage.
Well, I think also because I raised her, we're very similar. Like,
Right.
very similar.
Okay, so Glinda, air,
Alphabet Earth
Okay.
is how he viewed
Okay.
like both figures when he was going into the costuming.
All
Which
right.
I mean, I think it's obvious that Glinda was going to be air because she has her little bubble. I would say she's a more. I guess she's always presented to us as a more light person, right?
Yeah. The blonde, and
Yeah.
you could say she is an airhead, maybe,
Yeah.
depending on your thoughts. But obviously, the deeper we get into the movie, and in theory, part 2, the layers, we start to see there are more layers.
We have
So
to
maybe
come
she
back
is
for
more
part
like
2.
Earth, where she has multiple, like how the Earth has like multiple layers.
Oh, I thought about onions, like in Shrek.
And
where,
onions come from the Earth. So
that's
there we
true.
go.
That's true. It
There we
always
go.
goes back to the Earth.
There we go.
I thought like the whole comment on Alphabet being like the Earth was really interesting because, I will say I do think that she's a character that I think is forced to be more grounded, more realistic on like how life is supposed to go for her.
Right.
Versus I think that Glinda is allowed to have high ambitions, is allowed to actively express desire.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we don't get a whole lot of it in the movie or even the stage show either, but obviously Glinda's like growing up life, adolescence was very different from Glinda's, which we don't see, but we get a good sense that like she's always been the queen bee. She's always been the center of attention. She's always gotten what she wants. Whereas Elphaba's kind of had to like defer to Nessa Rose, like when Nessa Rose came into the picture, or really just deferring to other people and their feelings because she makes people so uncomfortable because of her skin color, which is something she can't help. So she's just trying to mitigate that in her interactions. But when she's at Shiz, she's kind of like, okay, this is who I am, and like you can think I'm scary, but like I don't really give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
So she's more jaded when we first meet her.
No, I would agree.
Which makes her feel more down to earth to me, I guess, if we want to bring it back to the earth. So until she's not. Until she's not on the earth.
So in regards to like his idea with costuming, so if Alphabet is the earth, right?
Yeah.
So Tazwell has made the comment that like in his approach to Alphabet, he wanted to connect her to nature and to a world that is organic and grounded. And to him, like connecting her to nature speaks for her advocacy for animals.
Mm-hmm.
And he was looking for a lot of textures and roots and design lines of roots, bark, and mushroom when making her wardrobe, which I personally didn't see much of, at least when I watched the film. But I will say, I think the one thing that I did agree on is his usage of the color black, or his desire to continue keeping black as a signature color for her.
Yeah.
He says, in terms of using black, you think about young people who tend to dress in very dark colors to be more severe or put people off, but it's about finding your own way. For her, it was mourning her mother when she lost her early in life.
Yeah. Yep. I think like that's the thing with costumes and like really any sort of element of film, like technical element. There's going to be things in there that you're not going to like see just because of the medium of film. Like things are moving, obviously motion picture. So you're not going to see like the nuances, but I love like reading quotes like that.
Same.
Where like the character is built in to like the costume as well. So it's like you may not see it when you're watching the movie the first time, but like you go and read something like that and you're like, that makes so much sense though for the character that we got on screen.
I will say when she does wear her signature black dress towards the end of the film, I do think there were various little intricate designs that almost made it look like roots.
Yeah.
And then when you look at like the bottom,
even the style of the hat.
Yeah.
Too, like almost, if I'm remembering right, kind of almost had like a viney or veiny sort of like aspect to like the spiral.
Yeah.
whatever it's called, the top of the hat.
No, I will say, like, I think for very specific reasons, most of like the extravagant costuming is gonna go to Glinda, but I think
Right.
I think I don't think it's so much because she's like the more important character, but I think it's because like her role is defined by like superficial
Yeah.
things, right? Like appearance is everything.
She wants to attract attention and Elphaba does not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that was like a big critique I had heard from RIP TikTok, now owned by. Am I allowed to say that? Am I gonna get?
No one's gonna see this episode now because you said TikTok.
I got a shadow ban for saying that I'm not going back to TikTok. I'm on Shaoxing Shu. But yeah, I think a lot of people had, and again, going with Ben Shapiro's whole tirade against Ariana Grande, where a lot of them are like, oh, like, why, is she drawing so much of like the physical attention? And it's like, but I think that's like the whole point, is like her whole identity, her whole connection to power and influence is from perception, like how she's perceived, how she looks, right? Because like in all iterations of Glinda, she's honestly like, I mean, I haven't read the book that's like the basis for everything that we have now.
I'm about halfway through it.
Was it good?
Now. It's very different. Won't really go into a whole tangent about that, but there's not as much Glinda in there, at least right now, from like where I've read. The focus is very different in the book versus the musical that we're talking about. So,
but I feel like the whole, like, I think that's like, I feel like there's just so many things that sometimes like directors or designers do in a film that is supposed to be intentional, and then sometimes like the fans will be like, ugh, can you believe they made this mistake of like doing this and this?
But what do people mean when they say, first of all, who are these people? And second of all, what do they mean when they say Glinda's getting more attention? Or because she's played by Ariana Grande?
Yes.
Or,
so a big one. So I think a lot of like, those like drama accounts were first talking about how like there was allegedly this huge like pay disparity between both co-stars, where like the amount that Ariana Grande was paid was like massively different than what Cynthia was paid. But apparently like they were allegedly they were paid the same. But when that first had come out that there was this huge pay discrepancy, people started having like the conversation of why, if like the movie is supposed to be centered on Elphaba, and then they were continuing on how like Ariana Grande's influence is like what led to Glinda maybe having more, like, I would say, variation in her wardrobe, right? Like she has, the more colorful, she has more outfits. They're a little bit more like avant-garde in your face.
I'm trying to let
right?
you finish, but I have like so many things.
But I do think like, I don't think that it's because Ariana Grande was the lead. I think it's, and because she has like that whole like pop star title to her, right? I think it's because that's the whole point of the original work, is that you have someone, right, that's framed as larger than life, right? She's this bright sun, versus someone that's forced to be in the shadows.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot. And like what I would say to that is like, depending on who has these opinions, I feel like it's people who are just trying to get clicks, like it's clickbait, because like you just said, like that is the story. Like the story starts with Glinda after Elphaba has been killed you know? So, like,
Yeah.
it seems like the movie's framing her as, like, the, like, protagonist. But, like, you could arguably say they're co-leads. Like, I think that they both have equal importance in the story. Like, I don't think that it necessarily has to do with the fact that she's played by Ariana Grande. Like, if anybody else had played that part, it would have been the exact same. And that's maybe some of the Arianator coming out in me. But, like, I don't give those any... as far as the rumors about the pay, I don't know because I haven't, like, looked into that. But I don't know if any of us are going to, like, really... No. And based off of the, like, rapport that Ariana and Cynthia seem to have,
I agree.
I feel like they would have talked about that at some point during this press tour that it seems like they're just continuing to go on.
No, I agree. I just think for me what I find interesting, especially like this day and age, I talked about it with my friends like at the French table yesterday, is that sometimes people take like a snippet of, like, I know that we always like make fun of like the old people who fall for like fake posts on Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that a lot of young people fall for fake posts on TikTok, especially, right?
Yeah.
Where they'll hear one thing and like they'll run with it.
Right.
But I do think also like that, but I think this really does fall in the comment of, I think a lot of people are not really truly understanding the nuance behind media. Because, like, just as we mentioned, to us, oh, it's obvious why she would have, like, a more, like...
Yeah, they haven't seen the movie or seen the musical. If people are saying that, like, if they watched the movie, they weren't paying attention.
Yeah, but I'm also just saying, I'm going to change getting a little... But I think, like, that's kind of what I think is interesting, right, is, like... And I think why I have those many moments where I perceive something one way, I go to the fandom pages, or like I'll go on social media, and mainstream is like, no, it's this way, which I think is interesting.
Is it mainstream? That's the question I have too.
Well, I guess,
is that a mainstream opinion, or is that just the opinion of people on TikTok?
Well, I guess it's like, how influential is TikTok then in terms of the mainstream? But I think for me, like, asking the real questions here, but also...
Sorry, I'm playing devil's advocate because...
No, you're valid.
Yeah,
I'm just presenting points. I don't necessarily agree with them. I'm just like, when I was still on TikTok and I was like scrolling through my feed, because Wicked was like really big central point, right? I would first hear comments critiquing it, and then like a couple swipes down, I'd hear the contrary argument defending it. Like, one actually thing, and I think it'll be a really good continuation into like the whole conversation, is the whole issue with the color gradient. And specifically like the makeup, and how a lot of people criticized how washed out they felt Ariana Grande looked in the film, right? Because she kind of has the same shade of blonde, same shade in her eyebrows, but it kind of like meshes with her skin tone, so she kind of seems a little bit more washed out. And I had, on the one end, comments like critiquing the makeup and the hair, but then on the other end there was people defending it and bringing up like stylistic choices as to why that could have been a thing.
Yeah, I think the whole subject of her appearance I'm gonna stay away from, just because like you're getting into a lot of like allegedly territory that like they might be talking about how she looks in the movie, but that is compounded with like all the other conversations that people have had about her appearance, especially like recently. I do think I agree with the washed out idea, like not even specifically for her, but like in the movie as a whole. Like there are definitely moments where the world of Shiz and Oz could be a bit more like saturated, have some more color. I'm thinking of the one that everyone's kind of glommed onto, and justifiably so, is the Dancing Through Life scene in the library where there's all that like backlighting that really like washes her, not just Ariana out, but like Jonathan Bailey, like all the other characters that are like in that scene, because there's so much like light coming in, it kind of messes with the effect that scene is supposed to have on you emotionally.
So in terms of the stylistic choice behind the color gradient, the director, flaming quotes, the director John M. Chu spoke about this in an article with the Globe and Mail, and he basically said that he wanted to isolate the film from the fantasy, like imaginary vibes that had been tied to prior adaptive works. So he says, so far in the Oz universe, it's been a map painting, it's been a video game digital world, but for us, I want to feel the wear and tear of it, and that it's not plastic. And then he also said that the relationship with the land is important, and for him, the reason why it's so important to start off with such a more like dull color gradient is that then you can kind of feel the impact as the color contrast goes up over time because of what Elphaba brings to the world.
Okay, my thoughts there are like, does it go up? And okay, I don't want to sound super shady, but I'm like, are we gonna get that in part 2? Like,
that's what I'm thinking. So
okay.
Maybe, because I will say, like, to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, please play devil's advocate.
I can definitely tell that, like, the intensity of color. I mean, I think it's because it had to when they go to the Emerald City. I think that if they did not upplay the color, right?
It looks great.
But I would say that I didn't feel like the colors changed because of Elphaba, right? I think it changed because they were going to the Emerald City.
And we, all of us, whether you're a Wizard of Oz fan or not, we have an idea as a culture of what that looks like in our head.
Yeah.
So it's like you may want to divorce yourself from that and like make your own vision, but like people are going to compare it inevitably, you know? Yeah. So I'm glad they upped the color and made it vibrant at that part.
No, I agree. I think like when I think about like the parts of the film, especially before they leave to the Emerald City where color was more predominant, I think about that scene where she finds the baby lion, foreshadowing.
Ooh,
and
who could that be?
And she's with Fiyero.
Yes, Froyo, not Froyo.
Froyo.
Ooh,
that does sound good.
That sounds good. What kind of Froyo flavor would Fiyero be?
Orange.
I was gonna say sherbet, rainbow sherbet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anyway, continue. Sorry.
Like, I would say that's a very colorful scene where they're like in the forest together.
Yeah.
But I will agree, like the whole dancing through life segment could have used so much color, like especially when they get to the actual ballroom.
Yeah. And for me, like the cinematography and the look of the film there, that has been a big point of conversation online. I'm someone that, like, besides the dancing through life part, like, it didn't really bother me that much, and maybe that's just because all movies kind of like look like that now, so I'm kind of just like used to like that being how movies look. But it didn't bother me as much because like everything else, like the performances, the costumes, the choreography, all of that, like the songs, obviously, like all of that was like being performed and presented at such like a high caliber that I didn't mind as much that like, oh, maybe this looks a little bit like a video game.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I
so
agree.
That's where I come to it from.
I think continuing with the comment that you made where I agree. I think commenting on people's bodies and appearance, it's probably, well, I mean, not only is it
is
great,
important to Wicked, though.
Yeah.
I think like this whole like press cycle they've been on.
I think the reason why I wanted to first mention that is because I know that there was a lot of eating disorder comments that were made about both leads. That people just very openly, like, I get that there's, like, because I had mentioned it once to Danny about, like, how I thought it was really interesting that, like, it seemed as if Wicked had been such an impactful journey for both women, because they seem very, like, changed at the, like, if you like when you look at the interviews, right, like, it seems as if it was a very impactful time for both of them, right? But I think also, like, people have honed in on how drastically different they looked when you first, like, look at the initial auditions for the roles, right, to when they're now in press tour season, which I think can be very problematic to have, especially so open in a lot of, like, social media platforms. But I think to talk about the makeup, which is to me what I'm more focused on, I think it's not so much the physical appearance, because I think Ariana Grande is a very beautiful woman. Same with Cynthia. To me, I think there was this comment that was made about the makeup, right, that makes her look very washed out. And I thought that it was very interesting because on the one end, I heard a lot of, I always say I heard, like, I'm just like, as I'm scrolling through TikTok, right, a lot of people would say things like, like, she just looks so washed out, like, they should have worked better on the makeup, you know, like, if they're gonna put so much effort and time into this film. And then there was, like, this other comment someone made of, like, defending the makeup usage, where she's like, well, like, the whole point of Wicked, right, is that you have Elphaba, right, you have a person who is coming in and is defying this almost authoritarian, like, environment / regime that is being established in the Oz world. Is that what it's called?
Oz.
The
Oz world.
But, like, and I thought that, I honestly think that, you know, when we look at, like, there's, like, this, oh my god, I forget their name, I'm gonna look it up when I add it to the edits, but there's, like, a big rhetoric, I believe her name is Crutches and Spice, on TikTok. She's, like, a huge, like, disability advocate, but she talks about how, like, color inherently, it's, like, when you look at conservative spaces, especially more, like, alt-right spaces, it's always, like, the deviation of color, like, that monotone, neutral tones. Like, when you see those, like, beige houses with beige couches and beige tables.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I felt like if, like, you know, obviously any type of designer could be like, guys, that was intentional, but then they're like, like, that was a mistake, right? But if I'm taking them for word value, right, and that they're being intentional in everything that they do, right, it kind of makes sense that her, like, those, like, features, right, like her hair, her eyebrows, her skin tone, it kind of makes sense that it would mesh, right, because she's, you know, being complacent in a lot of, like, injustices that are occurring, right? And the one person that is actively speaking out against them is bright green.
Right.
So I don't know.
She can't hide behind the facade like
Linda
can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, the use of washed out makes me think almost too of, like, fading into the background.
Yeah.
Almost, and, like, becoming part of the scenery, which, whether it was intentional or not, on behalf of the filmmakers, and if you think that she looks washed out, that is an interesting read on, like, why that possibly could be, and, like, how it could add to her characterization.
Well, I think, like, the thing that makes me, like, the only thing that makes me go, is because I would say most of the characters do kind of give that washed out appearance, right? Like, again, because of the color gradient and the color scheme that they're sticking with.
Right.
But, what's his name? Is it Bog or Pog?
Bach.
Bach.
Me and Bach.
We deserve each other. That bright hair be throwing me off. They should have just made him a brunette. But no, I do agree. I think, I don't know, it's
what I will say for people that want to critique the makeup, again, I'm going to stick up for her. The scene, it's one of the interludes. Well, it's the interlude in Dancing Through Life before they go to the Ozdas. And her whole look for the Ozdas ball.
Yeah.
Like that sort of like fiery, feathery thing. Her face is beat. Okay? You might have to throw up a picture on this.
Yeah.
But she looks like amazing. Like, I'm just like, I don't wear makeup or anything like that, but I'm like, damn. Like, they did that there.
Okay, I'm looking this up.
What else? I'm trying to think of anything else about the makeup and hair specifically. I don't know. That was one of those things that I think I was just so caught up in, like, everything else. Like, the performances, the choreography, the just the world, that I wasn't like thinking about the makeup all that much.
No, that's,
I don't think that's the right one.
No. I'm trying to compare. So I'm looking at first like the regular no eyebrow look, right? And I'm comparing it to the look where you say that she's like beat down. I just think her
I don't know, maybe beat down isn't the right word,
well,
but like
okay,
she
okay.
looked like,
I just think she seems more like 2016 glam makeup because she has more visible eyebrows.
I don't know. I think she looks. I'm not going to comment anymore on her.
She looks
on
good.
Her body. Yeah.
On her body. I'm just saying the makeup.
On her appearance. Like, this is all into her appearance, though. Like,
well, no.
Sure, you're just talking about makeup, but.
Well, here's my thing: is like, regardless of like with the makeup, without the, I mean, she's beautiful, right? Like, I don't think that there's any question to it. I just think for me, like, when with the stylistic choice that they gave her, like for like the coloring of her hair and her eyebrows. It's like there's some scenes where it looks like girly doesn't have eyebrows. And I think maybe that's why she looks more like 2016 glam, is because she has more visible eyebrow when they're in the dancing scene.
Yeah.
But
I just think she looks really great
no,
there.
she does.
Yeah.
It's just for me I think like not so much that it like bugged me enough where I'm like walking out of the theater about to go make like a TikTok being like, but I did notice that like her eyebrows just seem very like, where they at? You know what I mean? It's sure, like in a couple years ago I bleached my eyebrows and sometimes I'm like, where they at? Like she looks good. I just think like, I don't know.
When I got my hair dyed blonde, she asked if I wanted to do my eyebrows blonde as well, and I was like, I don't think so.
Well, I think the reason why I bring up the eyebrows as well is because a lot of like hairstylists also added like their whole like input in the whole like dialogue regarding like, for example, there was like this whole like conversation on like maybe they should have given her like a more richer tone of blonde.
Okay.
And then a lot of hairstylists were like, oh yeah, like normally when you're dyeing your hair really dark, you want to lighten your eyebrows. And then when you're like coloring your hair super light, you want to darken your eyebrows. Supposedly.
Okay. Well,
I don't know. That's just, I'm not an expert. I think just from like an observation standard, I think it would have been nicer for her eyebrows to have. I'm not like trying to make it seem like it's the eyebrows, you know, they're such a crucial part. I just think like, although I think she did a really great job in expressing the emotions behind Glinda, especially in the opening number, I do think that having more of that visible brow really would have helped hone in a lot of like the feelings of discomfort or worry that she feels in a lot of the scenes, if that makes sense.
Wow. Hard disagree. I think conversations like this are sort of what has bothered me about the whole like Wicked discourse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because like people are just either super invested in Wicked itself or in Ariana Grande or what it is, but I feel like that feels like nitpicky.
That's
like
fair.
For me, that doesn't take away from her performance as an actor. Like, I think she gives a great performance. Like, she was just Academy Award nominated.
Well, I think to reinstate my statement, I'm not saying that her, like, that alone took away from any of the acting, because again, I do think that she did a really great job, especially in the opening number where she's expressing these feelings, right? Like, as they're burning down a, you know, symbol of her friendship, right? As she's dealing with those emotions at the same time. I thought that was like a really great part, like a great performance. I'm not saying that like her, because I do think that that's like that's a great performance. I don't think that there was anything she could have done differently to make that better. Like, it was great. Like, it was a good performance. What I'm trying to say is, I think that if that little detail would have been there, I think it would have helped in more like subtle scenes, where a lot of the feelings maybe are having to be expressed in more subtle ways, because you can tell like her eyes and her mouth, like they're moving to that expression that you would like, that are like to the emotion. But I think sometimes it was just the eyebrows. And I'm not trying to like nitpick and it's like that was it, that ruined the movie, because I do know a lot of people had that view. But I think I'm adding to the thing, if maybe that little detail had been more congruent, I think that those more intimate scenes where it's not like super emotion heavy, but it's subtle, I think I would have liked seeing that. But I'm not trying to be one of those people that's like,
you want Ariana Grande to be an eyebrow actress.
Yeah. Okay. No, like I don't think that the eyebrows were like, I think a lot of people frame the eyebrows as like,
frame the eyebrows. Like the eyebrows frame your eyes. Now the next time I see this movie, I'm going to be like looking at that, cuz again, like I'm just, for me, like I didn't notice that, I guess.
That's fair.
Like, but
I think to be devil's advocate,
I think we're gonna have to. I think what's gonna end up happening here is we're gonna agree to disagree on this topic.
Well, okay, I guess for me to add to the whole discourse, right? I think that it really varies on who you are and your relationship to, which we'll talk about in parasocial relationships, right?
I'm like, what discourse? Which discourse?
Because you are coming from a place where you are viewing Ariana Grande from a huge place of admiration, right? And a huge place of respect. You have prior experience with how she performs, right? So you're obviously going to view her performance in one way, right? I think for me, I'm Switzerland, where I don't really come to a point, I don't view the whole performance with any type of prejudice, because I'm not like, I don't personally like, I'm not an Arianator, but I'm also not going to be over here like, wow, the eyebrows ruined the whole experience, right? But I do think like the way that we perceive these actors, these celebrities, does play a role in how we end up viewing their performances.
Oh yeah.
And I think because she is someone that like, I would say like a lot of people have taken notice to a huge aesthetic change that she's gone through, right?
Oh yeah.
Where I would say like her features used, like her facial features used to be more not severe. That's like not the right term. But you know,
the tan.
Yeah,
like,
she had the tan. You know, the
high pony.
The Anastasia Beverly Hills 2016 brow.
Sure, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you. But I just think that will ultimately impact like how we view the performance, right?
Well, and I mean, I am a big fan, but that doesn't, for me, like, I'm not saying it's the best performance in the whole entire world that I've ever seen, and anyone that disagrees with me is wrong. I do think that given like the pressure that was probably on her.
Yeah.
Because this is a beloved property. We know that she is like a big fan of Wicked and obsessed and loves Wicked.
The 2016 bros.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And also, like, this is her first big like acting in a movie. Like, she's acted before and stuff, but like for everything that was like, there were so many things stacked against her, and I'm kind of like, I'm always like, I'm obsessed with a pop diva that goes into like their acting bag.
Yeah.
Because I'm invested in it because there is so much baggage that comes with it. And for her to have pulled it off as well as she did.
Yeah.
Not saying it's like the greatest thing I've ever seen, but like it's a very wonderful performance. And the fact that she was able to pull it off is pretty remarkable.
I think it's more of like, it's not even a critique on the performance. I think for me, it's mostly just a critique on like, truthfully, the makeup. But I think a lot of people will then be like, it's her fault, she doesn't have eyebrows.
It's the eyebrows. Well, now I see what you mean, because people do, like, they hone in on like the one like negative thing they can find, and then they like blow it up into like this thing, and it's like, that's like such a minuscule part of, it's like, do you even care about the movie? Like, are you just looking for something to like
hone in on?
Yeah.
I think for me it's like,
which I don't think is what you're doing.
No.
I'm just like, I've never heard, I was not part of that conversation.
Really?
I didn't know that was happening.
Dude, every time I kid you not, before it switched to It Ends With Us content, for at least like a couple of days, my feed was just, I would scroll, it would be Ariana Grande supposed like thing with Ethan Slater, and then the whole drama with that I knew. And then I'd scroll 3 down, and it'd be like, was like, did the color gradient, did the makeup make her look washed out? 3, like, for some weird reason it was such a big talking point. And I think like I would say like, let me find it for you, but as soon as like the TikTok app,
I don't think I want to see it.
No, fair. I just think like, I think it's interesting because while I think that it's okay, like I think like, again, it's a movie, it's visual work as well, right? I think you're allowed to be like, oh, I wish that like the makeup maybe would have gone a certain way, right? Or I think like that's one thing, but also I feel like Ariana Grande isn't like the creative mind behind the makeup, right? She's simply the actor who is given the look, and she works with said look.
Yeah, like this is what art is for, to critique.
Yeah.
It's just when certain people online focus on like the really nitpicky things that like, especially going into someone's like appearance, I'm like, now you're on a slippery slope of like, is this about the movie and the performance, or are you making a comment that is personal at the actor?
Which I think is a good point to pinhole. Is it the term pinhole, or to pin for our last, like, towards the end? To put a pin in.
Yes. Okay, let's put a pin in that. On the eyebrows.
On the eyebrows, in particular. Because I do really want to talk about, like, that whole parasocial relationship, because I do think it plays a really big role in a lot of recent media.
Yep.
But just to really quickly jump into another, I think, a really big, strong suit of the film, which was the singing. Supposedly, a lot of it was live singing. Simon Hayes, who does the mixing for the film, who has worked on other films like The Little Mermaid and the Cursed Atrocity that was Cats. Did you see that one?
I did. Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
He mentioned that like live singing isn't really a new trend, especially like a lot of films in the 1900s employed live singing. And he wasn't truly he doesn't really know the exact percentage of what like specifically is like, what do we hear live and what had to be like what had to be like
pre-recorded.
What had to be re-recorded at the studio. But I thought that the singing felt very natural, like the transitions. And I'm gonna bring up Beauty and the Beast. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but
Emma, don't leave my girl Emma Watson alone.
I've stuck to like love Emma Watson, baddie queen, right? No one else could have pulled off Hermione Granger as well as Emma Watson. Also, I keep giggling because the lampshade keeps moving.
I know.
And it cracks me up.
I'm very aware of it, but like this is like where my arm is resting. So,
but like one thing that I did not like about the Beauty and the Beast film is they like auto-tuned her a lot. And so when she transitions from talking to singing, it's so noticeable, and there's that kind of like robotic aspect to her singing that I just did not like. That's just my one critique. I thought that acting wise she was a good Belle. It's just the singing that was it for me. But that's something that I sometimes catch in a lot of productions like TV or film productions that employ singing. It's like, for example, in the clips that I've seen of Emilia Perez. I need to watch it. I can't be a hater I've just seen certain scenes. Like I've seen have you seen it?
Yeah.
Have you seen where she goes in and she's like, I want to know about sex change operation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen the movie. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think because not to go into too much of a tangent, but that movie is categorized as a musical, but like that's a very loose term because it's a lot of like talk singing.
Yeah.
Which was probably done live, and it clearly sounds like it was done live because it's not good.
I mean, hey, maybe future episode if I do. Well, I do need to watch it, but
I think you should.
But yeah, I thought that the singing was nice. Like, I think my only
for Wicked, right?
Yeah.
To be clear, we're
talking about Wicked.
not Emilia Perez.
But I thought they did a really good job with the singing. I thought it was all very seamless.
I was like, we're not gonna know what this movie's like until it's out. It could be really bad, but what I knew was that like with having Cynthia and Ariana as the leads, the soundtrack was gonna be amazing regardless.
Yeah.
Like if the movie was bad, not their fault, because at least we get a really great soundtrack.
Yeah.
So I had no complaints. I agree. I think like the singing into like talking was pretty seamless, and it seems like they did a lot. They're like insisting that they did a lot of the singing live on there, but I'm sure it was like blended with pre-recorded tracks as well.
I thought it was very seamless.
Yeah.
I think like what would kind of be nice, putting an idea out there, if they did like a one night only Broadway production of Wicked, like they just transferred what they did in the film just straight to stage.
And have the movie cast.
Yeah.
Oh my God, can you imagine the demand for that? That would be.
Guys,
that would be insane.
I don't know if you do the idea.
I mean, I'm hoping that they do some sort of performance at the Oscars, because at the time this was recorded, nominations just came out and they got 10.
They got 10?
Yeah, and Ariana and Cynthia were both nominated.
Yeah, because I know they nominated Cynthia for lead and Ariana for supporting.
The makeup and hairstyling was also nominated.
It was nominated?
It was. So those eyebrows, or lack thereof, are Academy Award nominated. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Okay, the next... What time are we in? Oh, okay. The next angle I wanted to talk about was playing on my little phone. The memes.
How dare you have notes?
The meme culture. Holding space for Defying Gravity. I thought the memes were pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie.
The big one for me is obviously the holding space, but what are the other memes that you have in mind?
Well, it got turned into a meme, but it was like when someone made a fan edit, and do you know the original Wicked poster, like for the Broadway production?
Yep.
So basically,
is your pussy green and all that? Or are we? Do you know about that?
Well, okay, it kind of goes into play. That was just such a random
well, because it's part of
yeah,
the
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so basically, like, they did like their own.
Not you thinking about it. Like
they did their own homage to the original Broadway poster, right?
Right.
But it was like in the homage, you could still see Cynthia. Why did I have a list for this? You can still see Cynthia's eyes, right? And so someone made a fan edit.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking back on it.
Someone made a fan edit.
Right.
I'm trying to find who did the fan edit. Wait, I'm gonna look this up.
Because they did the fan edit and like made it so she was looking down, and the other thing is she wasn't like smirking the same way that the original stage show poster has Elphaba smirking.
So Whistleblower was at Midosommar. MIDOSOMMAR was the user.
Mm-hmm.
But like I know I shouldn't find this funny, but I just thought that the post that she had made on Instagram was a little funny. This is the wildest, most offensive thing I have ever seen. Equal to that awful AI of us fighting, equal to people posing the question, is your green? Yeah. None of this is funny. None of this is cute. It degrades me. It degrades us. The original poster is an illustration. I am a real-life human being who chose to look right down the barrel of the camera to you, the viewer, because without words, we communicate with our eyes. Our poster is an homage, not an imitation. To edit my face and hide my eyes is to erase me, and that is just deeply hurtful.
Would you also agree that we use our eyebrows to communicate?
Yeah.
Well? Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so here, were you done or can
you can go?
So it's funny that whole thing predates the holding space meme.
It did predate the holding space?
Yeah, this was like the first big thing besides like the alleged affair that allegedly happened. Allegedly. So it's funny that it predates the holding space because I'm going to hold space for a couple things.
Okay.
In my thoughts on this. One, like, I understand why she could be upset about it. And I think, like, you may or may not know this, but, like, she is the first Black Elphaba to, like, assume the role, like, officially. Like, there was a Black Elphaba on Broadway, but she was like the understudy, and they just recently announced for the first time there's going to be a Black woman playing Elphaba full-time on Broadway. It's the first time it's happened, and the show's been on Broadway for over 20 years. So I think she probably feels and felt, especially leading up to the release, a lot of like pressure from that sort of perspective, and like because she is the less famous of the two, like that idea of being erased in the conversation, like I can understand why she would feel that way. On the other hand, it is also funny, and like she even came out afterward and she was like, yeah, I should have just like done that in like the group chat or something, because it's like it is funny, like the more so like the beating up, like the fighting me like that was funny, and also calling out a fan who did that edit. Like I don't know if that person was doxxed or not, but like I think famous people have to be careful with like calling people out like that, because I get being on the defensive and like wanting to like stick up for yourself, but you are the person with more power in that circumstance. So again, holding space for both of those things.
I think you do frame it quite well in that, when like looking at a lot of interviews that she gave in regards to like how she feels about her character, right, in the role that she's playing, you could tell that she puts in a lot of thought and a lot of care with having you know, good African American representation within the role of Elphaba, right? Like for even like minor things like hair, like those braids were so nice, by the way.
Yeah, the braids were great.
But so I definitely understand like feeling like that would be, you know, an attack to the work that you've put in to make this character more visible.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's not that.
It's like the whole, it's not that deep.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes we got to be careful because sometimes it is deep, but then in this specific instance, it probably was not that deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it didn't need to like turn into this thing of like. Yeah, it was just, I think it was really blown out of proportion.
No, I agree.
So, and I also think that people's reaction to the initial poster of them, where they were like, they had one job and all they needed to do was like recreate the actual poster. And I'm like, this is an adaptation. Like, calm down. Like, I understand why maybe you as a fan wanted an exact recreation, but like, this is not the stage show. Just like, let them do what they want to do. Like, that was kind of just at the point with all the discourse where I was just getting really annoyed with, because it felt nitpicky. Like, everyone was like nitpicking everything and like wanted this movie to like fail.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of over it at that point.
I think it's because most people don't really understand what an adaptation means. Like, I think people expect it to be the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. But according to Linda Hutchian, in Theory of Adaptation, you're like, the whole purpose of an adaptation is to bring something new to the table. Like, because if not, why adapt it?
Yeah.
Like, why would you retell the story then? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like always like a huge issue I think it's because they're framed as remakes and not as adaptive works.
This isn't a remake.
But it reminds me of like in those like, you know, those Disney remakes, they're called live action remakes, and people like racists get really mad because they're like, why is Ariel not a pale white fiery red, like, and it's like, it's an adaptive work. Like, they're taking the source material, they're bringing you the same, not word for word the same story. I mean, it's still elements of the same story, right? But they're spinning it in a new way that's supposed to be like fresh, you know, and more like, you know, to fit more of current times. Yeah.
That's a really great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think, because we live in this age of like the constant Disney live action remake. Yeah. Where like with a remake, the assumption is going to be more that it's like a shot for shot, like revision of like what was done before. Yeah. And like maybe people like conflating remake with adaptation, which in the case of Wicked, it's not a remake, it is an adaptation of the stage show. So like, I think that is an important piece to that conversation, and why maybe some people were so up in arms by like the poster not looking the exact same.
No, I agree. Yeah. I think in terms of like I mean, unless there's other memes that you want to talk about in regards to holding space for Defying Gravity, the last thing that I thought was kind of funny was there was this Fox, I think it's this woman called Gina Ludon, who like basically went, I believe it's on Fox, and she said that the movie was offensive and racist against white people. She says, quote, "I saw it, but I was very excited at the idea of seeing the interpretation of this, but I should have known it's Holly weird." Let's just start with the fact that they have Ariana Grande, who is obviously a Hispanic woman, playing the part of a ditzy blonde, white, really villain when it comes down to it, for this particular movie. The racism and racial appropriation I just thought was offensive, frankly. All white people aren't dumb and evil.
Which is rich coming from, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what more can you say for that.
I just didn't know. I didn't know Ariana Grande was Hispanic. Like,
right.
loving the representation, you know.
Yeah.
That is given to us through this Hispanic queen.
Well, and she wants to talk about white people not being dumb, but that sounds like a very dumb thing she did with like not doing her research and realizing that. Sure, Grande's her last name, but that doesn't mean that she's...
Wait, it's because she has an Italian last name.
Right.
Yeah.
But, like, she thinks that it's Hispanic. So, not Italian. Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, I don't really have a lot more to say about that one because it's not surprising coming from Fox News.
I think it was Fox News. I
think it like that's what because I remember seeing the soundbite like on Twitter. I didn't listen.
You mean X?
It's Twitter. It will always be Twitter to me.
I've never had a Twitter account. I thought about deleting my Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
We're
just in a wasteland.
That's why I use Ya Shongshu.
Slay. Not sponsored yet.
Not sponsored. I'm not sponsored by the Chinese government.
Allegedly. Okay, should we hold space for holding space now?
Yeah, let's have a moment to hold space.
Okay, here's my... Do you want to...
Yeah.
Do you know... Girl, you're supposed to do that. I didn't know that was happening.
I didn't know that, yeah.
I didn't know that was happening. This is queer media, right? We're queer media.
Yeah, I've been on some
media.
Queer media, yeah.
Okay. All right. What do you have to say about this whole thing?
About holding space for Defying Gravity?
Yeah, or do you have more to build on before we get into it?
I just wonder what that interviewer must feel like because...
Well, she's getting like brand deals and stuff.
She's getting brand deals?
Yeah. Yeah, like it all, like it's...
I mean, she did, I guess unintentionally, she created a meme.
Yeah, like she said all the stuff that people quote, like holding space. I'm in queer media, so yeah. Like that's all her. Like Cynthia's kind of like, I didn't know that was happening. And then Ariana has the holding the not the hand, the finger.
I just want to add that I would see a lot of interviews, right, that they would ask them like a question like, yeah, so what were your meals like? So and people would be like, oh no, like you know, or they'd be like, yeah, so like well, I'm trying to think because there were so many questions that they'd be like, oh, so like what was like the last day of filming, and they'd be like, so, and I feel like to me, like when I think of the whole meme of like holding space for Defying Gravity, right? I feel like if I was the interviewer, I'm like, I feel like prior to interviewing them, right? If I was I feel like if I was going to be an interviewer and I'm about to interview these two leads, right? I'm probably going to watch prior interviews that they have, right? Because I don't want to ask super redundant questions. I don't want to
yeah.
Right? Like I want to bring something new to the table. Yeah. And I feel like if I was in her headspace, I feel like, you know, obviously this was a very impactful role for these women, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like have this like little sub feeling that maybe their prior behavior in the other interviews kind of went into her being like holding space for Defying Gravity.
Well, yeah, like clearly they had never gotten that question before because it's gone on to live on now and it'll live on forever. So kudos to her for bringing something different to the press junket because from my understanding of how those work, they do get a lot of the same questions from people because like each outlet wants they want the clicks and all of that stuff, so like they got to stick to like the boilerplate questions.
See, so I know I would totally get fired as a interviewer because like if they were like, okay, you have to interview Ariana Grande and Cynthia. Is it what's Cynthia?
Aribo.
One of the first things I would have asked, I would have been like, so have you ever watched SpongeBob?
It took me a minute because literally in my head I was like, yeah, Ariana's a millennial, of course she watched SpongeBob, like, and she's a Nickelodeon girly. That's where my head went, and then I made the connection to like what you're trying to.
Yeah, and then they would have like secret Arianator service would have escorted me out,
and they would have taken off your eyebrows.
Yeah, bleached them actually. Like the eyebrows would still be there.
You would have been taken into a room in the back, and eyebrows bleached.
I would, or I'd probably be like, because I believe like someone asked her a question about Victorious. I probably would be like, do you support the ship between Robbie and Kat? Would you have wanted the ship to continue if the show had continued? Probably like,
she would have been, I'm sure she would have loved that.
But the evil in me would have been like, what's your favorite episode of SpongeBob?
Yeah, well. Needless to say, that's not what I would ask.
No, that's fair.
I do think, though, what the holding space thing really brings into focus for me, just like thinking about like pop culture as a whole, is like how important like the press tour and stuff has come to like selling, especially movies, because like movies, right, you're supposed to go out and see them, and there's like been this talk basically since COVID, like shut down movies, of like, our movie theater's dead, like what can we do to get people to go back to the movies? And I think a lot of what has happened in recent years is like the press tours, like they got to create those like viral moments, and like even the marketing in forms of costumes. Like I'm thinking of like
Barbie,
but also Zendaya is a great example of this. Like her partnership with La Roche, who's amazing, like with Dune and Challengers, and then you had Margot Robbie last year with Barbie, and that's a big part of Wicked. Like even before they started doing interviews, like Ari and Cynthia would be on red carpets. She's wearing the pink, Cynthia's wearing the green. So like all of this, it's like led us to the holding space moment. Yeah. You know?
That's actually so funny that you say so, because I was going to echo the same statement where I feel like in terms of like the red carpet playing such a big role in the success of a film, right? I feel like it really did start with Zendaya and La Roche, because he really would have her dress to match the theme or the aesthetics of the film that she was promoting. And I really do think that really helped ump the interest in the films. And then I feel like Barbie, or like the people behind Barbie, took, I mean, maybe, I guess I'm gonna want to credit Zendaya, because it's Zendaya
and La Roche.
I feel like they started it, and then I think the people behind Barbie took that and magnified it like times. Is it magnified or multiplied it by 100 or 1,000?
Like they heightened it, and of course people are gonna think that it started with Barbie because it's like the historic thing of like the white people getting more credit than the black people. But like we know where it started, and I think like that's maybe always been a thing, but I think in recent years that's become like even more pronounced, of like the press tour is really what is going to get people to see the movie, maybe even more than like the movie itself and what the movie is about, which as a film lover kind of makes me sad, but it's been effective with Dune and Barbie and Wicked.
Challengers.
We love Challengers.
I feel like I had noticed it as well. Did you see Nosferatu yet?
Yeah.
I thought that like Lily Rose Depp's costume or like outfits during the like press run were actually pretty good as well.
I'll have to look at those.
But I would say, I would agree to like all of the above.
It's just really fascinating, because I think the marketing like the press tour for Wicked really started like this time last year, even though the movie didn't come out until November. Like,
yeah,
Cynthia and Ariana, like I remember the first trailer for Wicked happened during the Super Bowl last year, and they showed up to the Oscars together, and Ariana's wearing this pink dress that's like reminiscent of like a bubble.
I did like the dress.
Cynthia is there in her green dress, and like
I like the nails too.
Yes, the nails, like all of it. So, and really their press tour isn't going to end until the end of this year when the last movie's out.
Because when is the last movie coming?
It comes out this November.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and they've got like all these award shows coming up because they've both been nominated at all these awards. So they've got that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they might have a little bit of a break, but they're going to go right back into it with part 2.
So I did want to continue because we put a pin in it.
Oh yes, the pin. Yes.
And I think it's like the kind of like the last part of, this episode that I really thought was, we keep coming back to it, is the idea of parasocial relationships that a lot of people hold to celebrities, right?
Yes.
Yep. Because I think a big thing of discourse, in particular with Wicked, was people's views in terms of the morality behind alleged occurrences, right?
Yes.
So I wanted... Allegedly. We're really going to have to say allegedly like 2,000 times.
My new favorite word.
We're going to have to say that like 2,000 times when we do the Ends With Us episode. Like, honestly, I would say a fifth of the words are going to be allegedly. That whole thing is messy.
Speaking of marketing for the outfits.
Bring your florals.
Yep. So I'm telling you, it's all there.
Guys,
anyway.
Bring your florals to the next episode. When we do baby reindeer, bring your antlers.
Wow.
Okay. So basically, there's these two academic articles I had read, and I took 2 quotes that I thought were really interesting, and we can kind of break through them.
Yeah.
The first part is in this article, Marshall McLuhan states that we are essentially a global village where through these electric wires we have made these ties where we're like a single community with this all-inclusive nowness. And he says that the end result is a global village based on a single consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting because I'm not saying that TikTok is the most important social media app to ever exist, right? But I do think that, a third of people in the U.S. used it. For many, it's their diary, right? Where they, it's almost their town square where they express opinions, concerns, right? And when he makes that statement, it really does kind of ring true. Everyone on TikTok, in terms of mainstream, starts sharing these same priorities or same interests where it's okay, for this week we're going to talk about Wicked as a whole, but then next week we're going to talk about It Ends With Us. And I'm sure that discourse can exist outside of, those time frames that the masses put forth, but it does seem like a single consciousness at times. I do agree with the statement.
When was that? Do you know when that was written?
I believe it was in 2020, but I can double check in a moment.
Okay. No, you're good. I was just curious because I was does that predate TikTok kind of coming into its own or what?
I'll put that in
I always I think that's true regardless of even before the internet.
Yeah.
I think that the internet has made us all kind of feel more collectively one, or what does he say, one village, or a
global village.
Okay. Yeah. Because the reach that you can have on the internet is unlimited. I had to do it. I'm sorry.
No, you're valid.
So I agree with that. What I'm coming back to, and sorry if this doesn't like answer
No, it's okay.
your point, but you sort of describe TikTok as like a town square.
Yeah.
Where like people can go to like air what you said, something like
concerns or opinions.
But it's also a place where people can sort of like air out their like unjust like grievances, or just like raise how, like, I'm just thinking of appropriate for Wicked, like witch trials, and like back in the day, like they would, that's where alleged witches would get burned at the stake or whatever, like in the town square. So like I see like the positive part of that, but then also like the negative connotation of that idea, and like the consequences with that if we're not careful with it. Like, it's, everyone is entitled to their opinion and their thoughts, and they can bring it up, but I think like what we do with it from there, like beyond the town square, I guess, is what I think about.
No, I mean, I think that's a good point. I think in on one end, I get that there's a lot of cons with becoming so accessible to one another, right? I think sometimes I focus on the pros because,
and I think that's our generational difference. I think I may be a bit more skeptical on it than you are. As a Gen Z.
I think one of the reasons why I like having globalization and having, you know, more accessibility to information and to each other is that it really helps give you a more nuanced take on how the world really is. Because, for example, on on Red Note, it's really cool because there's a lot of cultural exchange that is occurring between Chinese citizens and citizens from the U.S. And I think both parties are trying to share information to educate and challenge themselves on their prior bias that they used to hold to the other group, which I think is really nice. Like, my favorite thing, it's funny, but it's also like, oh my gosh, is when Chinese citizens will be like, hey, was it propaganda when we were told that you guys continuously have to pay property taxes after purchasing like a home, like after paying it in full? Is that true, or was that propaganda? And we're like, it's true. Or they're like, is it true, or is it propaganda that you guys have like food deserts? And we're like, it's true. Like, I find that that's really interesting. And then my other favorite thing is the reverse. Like, people will ask Chinese citizens, hey, is it true that like this is how things are in your country, or is that like something we've just been told in the US? And I think it makes like both groups realize that like we don't really have prejudice against each other. We're just honestly like living under regimes that are in conflict with each other for power, right? And we're just kind of like having to bear the repercussions. And I've had people being like, I'll teach you Mandarin if you do my English homework. And I'm like,
love that.
So, I mean, I think in that way it's nice, right? I guess it's like, but I do understand the concerns. Because there's like this whole like, when I took this class on the Spanish Civil War, we like talked about memory and how like people who experience severe trauma, especially like when they experience like a traumatic historical event like a genocide, they basically like their offspring inherit those memories, right? And both the person that the person who experienced the initial experience and the child, right? Both of them, in a way, because they're not like truly allowed to acknowledge their past or have it be remedied, a lot of them constantly live in the past, right? And to me, the way that it makes me think in terms of like applications like TikTok is that we're constantly living in like short cycles of time where like it's like almost the opposite. We're not really honing in on the past. We're just living in the like short-term moment of like newsworthy, I'm gonna put that in quotes.
Yeah.
And our attention spans are becoming like so limited. Like I would feel like that would be like a really big con to the whole thing. Like I think just an overload of information makes you constantly shift to different pieces of information and never actually focusing in truly on one of them. And then when you do, normally like when I've seen people like focus on things, it's either like political things that are occurring or like celebrity things.
Right.
But
yeah, to bring it back to Wicked, I guess, is like, I think with that the whole alleged controversy that happened with Ariana and Ethan Slater allegedly, I think the consequences of like something like that having such a hold on like the internet or TikTok specifically is it feeds into this like algorithm that is already partial to the outrageous or scandalous sort of stories, and like completely like inflates it and like makes it like 10 times worse based off of like no credible information other than like what someone may have heard from like another person, and then like they turn it into like their own version of the story.
Yeah.
So that's why like with that specifically, like we don't know what actually happened.
I agree.
But like that global village makes you feel like you know what happened, and that feeds into that parasocial idea of like we know these people, and like because we feel like we know them, like we have this outrage over something that like we're being almost like gaslit into believing like happened the way that the internet told us it happened, when we don't know for sure.
I don't think that like, I think that had always existed, because I had mentioned I was going to bring up the whole like Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, but the internet has made it like
worse.
Way worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't know if you read that article on The Cut with Lily Slater.
Yeah.
I think she captured the feelings that we should be having well. In that,
I'm gonna push back a little bit on the idea of we. What I really liked about that piece was it was very like centered on her and her experience, which I think that whole thing needed, because like Ariana and Ethan haven't really talked about it for like whatever their reasons are for that. But like I think hearing it from her and her kind of like being, it seems like she is starting to like be at peace, but like there was this part of her personal and professional life that was taken from her, and she's grappling with that. So like I wouldn't say she's asking us to feel that way, but I can see again why people might think like, oh, she's giving us permission to like have this opinion now.
Well, I'm not saying that she's giving us permission or that she's asking anything of us. I think what I was trying to say is that I think we should take inspiration behind how she is handling the whole ordeal, right? Because as you've mentioned, like we're turning into like a town square where we'll hear something like kind of like, again, those witch trials. We're running with such little information, but we're making all of these complex narratives. And it's like, if one of the central figures in this whole situation is, handling the matter with a lot of, she's being professional, she's being respectful, and she's being mature about the whole thing, why can the rest of us not do the same?
Yeah. Yep. And like whether people took that from the piece or not, or by her speaking out that it feels like it gives them permission to trash Ariana further for her alleged involvements in that, because that is something I definitely did see when that piece came out, was like particularly on Twitter, of people again defaulting to like calling her a homewrecker and like
finding any sort of ammunition.
Yeah, like how could she destroy this woman's life and her marriage? And it's like that piece didn't like directly say that, but like that's what they're choosing. It's like more ammo for them to like beef up the opinion that they already had, that like wasn't going to change.
Yeah. And again, like maybe we'll never know, right?
I think the only thing
I think the only thing that we can take note is, you know, you clearly have a woman, like on the one end you have one woman that is receiving a lot of vitriol, partly because of people's personal feelings towards her, and then on the other hand you have this other woman who, prior to her, you know, soon to be ex-husband or now ex-husband, you know, was forced to become more in the public, right? Like she,
which affected how she does her job.
And I think are giving her, like, they're kind of treating her like Jennifer Aniston, and Ariana Grande is Angelina Jolie, right?
Right.
But I think like what's ultimately disappointing about the whole thing is like, even when we take out the whole thing of like, oh, we should probably not like hold so much vitriol towards people we don't really know, right? Or judgment or over people we don't know.
Right.
They never keep the same energy towards Ethan Slater, who, like, if you think about it, that's like, if you were to put your unjustified anger towards one person,
right,
it should probably be towards him. But to me, he seems pretty unscathed in the whole situation.
Well, and that's baked into like the fact that, one, she's a woman. Ariana is a woman. She's also Ariana Grande, which more people are going to know than Ethan Slater. So like, it all feels very misogynistic.
There's also another study that was done in the Philippines by Dave de Guzman Centeno. I should have gotten the years. The MLA citation in me is disappointed. Basically, like, he talks about how celebrities mirror spaces of social classification, and that celebrity culture is an important element in social connection and social identity, sustained by traditional and social media use. It is also a component where citizens own accounts to issue public concern, democratic exercise on political matters, and in the everyday consumption decisions. Embedding ourselves in celebrity culture energizes or electrifies one's experience in the world.
Yeah, I think they are celebrities, like, in a lot of ways. They're like living the lives that we all want to live. Yeah. So like it makes sense that you would get, like, what did he say, like energy and electricity from
energized, like, or electrified.
Yeah, from like being like a commentator on celebrity culture, which, like, I love pop culture, celebrity culture. It brings me a lot of joy to like talk about these things, but like it can be a slippery slope, and like thinking that, like, oh, because you talk about it so much, like you're an expert on like these people, and like, you know, their lives and how their lives work and all of that. So I think that's a powerful statement.
No, I think also maybe one of the reasons why, well, I mean, I think like historically, like, we've always had like a relationship where we fantasize or we idolize or we put so much attention into like rich, wealthier, or people who have more fame, right? Yeah. And I think like one of the biggest reasons is because, well, I think especially in current times, I feel like most Americans are put in situations where to financially survive, they have to either work a ton of hours, work more than one job, or work like very labor intensive roles, which then by the time that you are done with said job, you really don't have like the energy to upkeep a lot of social life, right? And so even like outside of being able to take on like these cool projects that a lot of these actors or singers get to do, I think also just having like a tumultuous personal life, right, is something that I think a lot of people lack in their everyday life. Not trying to be like, you guys all have mundane lives, right? But I think like that's just something that like a lot of people don't have the opportunity to have because we're so limited on time that sometimes like our relationships that we hold,
we're all attracted, at the end of the day, we're all attracted to a compelling narrative.
Yes.
And we love dramatic stories.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, I feel like us ordinary folks see celebrities as living like this fantasy life.
Yeah.
Which like gives you permission almost to like be more invested, as if like they're like characters in a movie or a book or something. And that gives you permission to be invested, but also to like tear them down as well.
I see. I don't personally like tearing them down because as our icon, first ever true celeb, influencer, Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
let the Lord. I feel like I never truly. I get that if it was like an extremely like immoral act, right? Like if you like murdered someone just cause. But I just feel like I never really understand people having this intense vitriol, especially like again in like the when there's like the alleged nature of like infidelity, for example, because like I think it's really easy to judge these people on their morals when you're like your every move isn't always like you're not being surveilled. Is that the term? Like 24/7.
Harassed in public for like an autograph or a photo.
Yeah. People don't always look at every single minor change that you decide to do with your appearance, right? I think it's so easy for us to cast this judgment without realizing that these people are basically constantly watched at all times. And I think that at some point, like, it's hard to always have to keep yourself in check to the utmost, like, moral high ground. And while I think that there are certain things that celebrities do that should be reproachable, just like if an everyday person, just like a celebrity, said racist stuff, right? Like, do you remember that lady? I think it was like Fashion Runway Police that made those really racist comments about Zendaya, and everyone was like, like, I do think that things like that do have to be like acknowledged, right?
Yeah, it doesn't excuse them making like shitty comments or being a bad person.
But I think that like in the case of the alleged infidelity that like is that whole discourse, right? I think people need to be very careful because you can't it's like the same thing with the Johnny Depp and the Amber Heard case where people were sending a lot of like hatred towards Amber Heard, and then a lot of people then backtracked and were like, oh my gosh, like I should have never done that, like he's actually the one that was like the terrible person out of the two. And it's like, I think you just have to be so careful with making such swift choices and then therefore such extreme reactions to what these people do or supposedly what they do or what they say, because at the end of the day, you don't really know them.
Yep.
But the tea is interesting. It's like the Hey Sisters tea. Do you remember that with
Mm-hmm.
James Charles?
Oh yeah.
Tati Westwood.
Bye, sister.
It was By
Yeah.
Sisters. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. This is. I agree. Like you, and it can be hard to like separate that. Like when, like for me, like Ariana's like one of my, she's in like my holy trinity of pop divas. Like she means a lot to me, and like her and like my like queer journey, like coming into my queerness, like discovering her music and being a fan of hers is like a big part of that. So like I do have that emotional investment. So like it was hard for me to like see that, which even saying that like sounds so dramatic because it's like, girl, this has nothing to do with you, and like you don't know her. But I'm just like, you can be tricked into like feeling like you do, because like you do invest like so much time into like their work, and like you respect their work. So like when an alleged or not whatever incident happens, you're kind of like, it's almost like the J.K. Rowling stuff. Like that just popped into my head because I'm trying to think of like an instance where it's like, I'm clearly not a fan of this person and their work anymore, even though their work meant so much to me at a certain point. Yeah. It's like the whole separating the art from the artist that you brought up, I think, at the beginning of this. It's like, that's a clear circumstance for me where it's like, moving forward, I can't. Like, there is no separation.
You can't do the separation?
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to consume any more of J.K. Rowling's work or buy any more of her art. You know? Agree. Because it's very clear cut what was done there and what was wrong. This situation, we're saying alleged because we don't know. Yeah. Like, we don't know, like, what actually happened or didn't happen.
I agree.
So that's where I stand when we're thinking specifically on this situation.
I know, I agree as well. I think, while I obviously, again, Switzerland, right, when it comes to Ariana Grande, I do understand, like, the feeling of, like, oh my gosh, like, I really love this artist, or I really love this actor and their works. Like, if Solange ever were to be like, I hate Mexicans, I would be so conflicted. Yeah. Right? Like, I'd probably no longer support her.
It would feel like a betrayal. Yeah. And again, it's like, you don't know her, but you've been a fan.
Snoop Dogg is performing.
I mean, yes, it does. It feels it is hard, and it's like I'm aware at this point in my life that these people are not my friends and I don't know them, but it's like, it doesn't mean that I can't feel a type of way. I'm not going to go online and like declare that I'm like, I hate this person now based off of a rumor that I heard that everyone has like gotten on the bandwagon about, that like, we don't know for sure what happened.
Yeah, I think
I'm just talking generally, too. I'm not even, like, talking about that specific situation anymore.
No, I agree. I just think it sucks when you really love someone's work, and then to know that, like, it's kind of like my feelings towards Picasso, where, like, on the one end, I love his work. I think that, you know, as an artist, he has done so much good. Like, I think of always, like, the painting Guernica that, like, depicts that whole massacre that occurred in Spain, right, at the hands of, you know, the conservatives and the, like, fascists that were taking over, right? And I think of how impactful it was to have that painting be as a reminder, right? But then when you hear about how, like, abusive he was to his partners, you're like, okay. Like, I think it's just, I think those kinds of actions really muddle your feelings towards the person. It's kind of like, I always get so nervous bringing this up, but it's always like when you talked to like psychology students and their feelings, for example, to Freud.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of baggage there.
Yeah, I just think in all areas, whenever someone makes themselves more public and acts in a way that is less favorable, right? It really tarnishes every single thing that they've done. And while I think that there are instances where it's justified, it makes you really wonder, where do we draw the line? That's like one of the reasons why I think I had always held off like filming a podcast, like or just filming anything, or why I hate getting like my picture taken, or why I sometimes hate like recognizing people in public. Like I feel like just becoming more known is such a fearful thing.
Right.
Like obviously I need to be realistic. Like I'm not going to be like Ariana Grande famous, and nor do I want to be, right? But like me and Danny talked about how like the hypothetical, right? And then like, you do get famous and then you get canceled for something that you did. I don't think you think that I think whether we want to acknowledge it or not, like social media and people's like perception on these celebrities is ultimately going to impact how the work itself is going to be viewed. While I don't think that it's that's just something that's just a given.
That's what makes it, like, to put a positive spin on it, like, that is what can make art so great, though.
Yeah.
Is like the context of the performer or the artist or the writer themselves, like hopefully from a positive place, not a negative place, like the Picasso example. Like,
yeah,
that's maybe not something you want to like think about, but like for me, I'm just trying to bring it back to Wicked again. Like one of the joys for me of watching the movie, and specifically Ariana's performance, was like, for me as a fan of hers, just knowing like how important this role was for her and like getting it and like the work that she put into it, and like just seeing that like manifestation like come to life for her, like that, all that context made the performance even more joyful for me to witness.
Yeah.
Like it added an additional layer to the performance that like another actress wouldn't have brought. Like they could have still given a really amazing performance, it just wouldn't have been the same performance.
Yeah.
So
no,
yeah,
I'm trying to think of like what actor I felt like,
or even like Cynthia Erivo, like her being the first Black woman to be playing this role of Elphaba, this iconic role, like that context that she brings in to how she characterizes Elphaba. Like her Elphaba has always been characterized as an outsider, but we have this additional layer as viewers because she's being ostracized for her green skin, but we also know that beneath that green skin is a Black woman.
Yeah.
And like the discrimination that Black women face in our world. So like that brought another nuance to that character and that performance. Like when she is crying after doing her dance at the Oztest ball, like I felt all of that in those tears. Like I was just like, I know what she's trying to communicate, even if it's not an experience that I have personally. Like I know what she's bringing to that particular moment right there.
Yeah.
So
no, I think you put it perfectly into words.
Yeah.
I think like I know I have the habit of getting off track, but it does remind me of like Michelle. No, because she's in Wicked.
She's
it reminds
in Wicked. Our Madame Morrible.
It reminds me of Michelle Yeoh's performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once, where I believe her other male co-star was in the same boat, where she was getting typecasted into roles and almost as if she was getting pushed out of Hollywood or in being a part of film, and how that, like, I feel like she really connected to that feeling, because I think her character in the movie is someone that's like being pushed to this really low point in life, right, where she's financially struggling to keep up this business that was supposed to be like a saving point for her and her family, right? And just having to navigate like her experience living in the US as a Chinese immigrant. I think that was so I do agree. I do think like there's both positives and there's negatives, right, to the personal life and our personal relations and perspectives to these actors or to these performers, these artists. And
Definitely.
I think it can do some good, and I think it could also, do some bad. That's me whenever I see a Brad Pitt film now.
Yeah. Yep.
Or like whenever have you seen those like posts where anytime Aaron Taylor Johnson stars in a film, people are like, free him? Have you seen those comments?
Yep.
And it's like, it's regardless of the film. Like, you'll be in a new film, you'll go down to the comment and you'll at least see one either saying free him from Granny or can't believe that Granny.
Yeah, like I think as a viewer or a consumer of culture, of art, like you have to have the nuance to like hold all of those different things.
Yeah.
Like hold space for all of those different things.
There's actually there's another common comment anytime I see like an Aaron Taylor Johnson post where people will be like, Ariana Grande, all will be forgiven, okay? You know what you need to do. Have you seen those?
No, but I get the joke, unfortunately.
Like, yeah, you know what you have to do.
So maybe to take us home on this, to bring us back to Kansas, no place like home. What was your favorite musical number in Wicked?
In Wicked?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I do think No One Mourns the Wicked. I genuinely loved not only the chorus in the song.
Yeah.
But I thought like Ariana Grande did such an amazing job on the vocals, and I think also just the feelings that she captures even
without the
eyebrows is, I think, like, you really feel that pain, right, of like having to accept the consequences of your own complacency in an unjust system, right? Even though it deviates from like who you end up becoming, right? Because I would say that she does change, right? I think Elphaba and their friendship impacts her. I would say changes her for the better. But I think when they're young, it's still not enough for her to not be complacent, right?
Right.
Because she doesn't leave with her. She decides to stay. And so I think that opening number really captures that feeling, right? Like, of on the
what is this feeling? Spoiler alert for maybe my favorite one.
Oh, is that yours?
So I mean, it's easy to say Defying Gravity or Popular, like, but I think when I first watched the movie, What Is This Feeling really stuck out to me, because I mean, I like the song on like the soundtrack, but I think the way that it was staged and choreographed, like it felt very like exhilarating, I think is the word. I was like, oh wow, like this is like when they were in the cafeteria, it was kind of giving me High School Musical Stick to the Status Quo vibes. Like it made me, I was like, ooh, reference, afraid to reference or not reference, I don't know. But and that's also the sequence where they've got that like choreographed thing that went big on TikTok where she's like slamming her fist on the books or whatever.
Oh, I do like that.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the musical highlights for me. That's like not Defying Gravity or Popular.
Yeah. As someone that definitely don't sing as high of a soprano as her, I think when she sings those high notes in No One Mourns the Wicked,
yeah,
people were like, I can't really understand what she's saying. Like, she's not like saying her consonant super well. And I'm like, do you know how hard it is to say to have consonants when you're singing so high? And the fact that like she's actually doing a really good job. Like,
yeah,
I can pretty much pick up everything she's saying. You're just being annoying about it.
nitpicky. Yeah.
First the eyebrows, now this.
Now the opera.
Now the opera. But like genuinely, I thought that like both women have such like amazing talent for singing. And
so different. Their voices are so different, but when they come together, they blend really well.
Yeah. And I really wonder, like, if it could have even been. I don't think that this type of balance or compatibility, I think, could have been easy to find. Like, I do think that they both women were destined for the role.
I think they really did get like lightning in a bottle with it, and like now that I've seen it, like I'm just like I can't even imagine like
anyone else,
other people in those roles.
Well, I just also think that that they did a really good job with the performance when, like, not saying that Idina Menzel wasn't iconic as Elphaba, right? She's like the first true on-stage production one. But you know that Cynthia Erivo must have done a great job when now she's like in the canon of notable Elphabas. Like, I would say now, if someone says Elphaba, my mind goes now to Cynthia, and then later to Idina Menzel.
Well, and that's the nature of it being a movie too versus a Broadway play. But like, that's so great though, because I know, like I was saying earlier, I feel like she probably did feel the pressure of being a Black woman taking on this iconic role and being like one of the first and on the largest scale possible a movie. So the fact that it's been so well received, like I knew she was going to pull it off. Like I've seen her in other films, like, and she's obviously got the vocal chops, but the fact that it's been so well received is just like icing on the cake.
She does such a good job that Ben Shapiro basically goes on a rant about how great Cynthia. He is not an Arianator.
Wow.
Yeah, he's not Switzerland either.
Him, so.
But honestly, someone needs to get him like a Cynthia Erivo t-shirt. Like he's he's part of the fan club.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
on that note,
I'm sorry for the constant. I just sometimes I get so like I'm like, oh my god, we have to bring this up.
No, you're fine.
But
this is my first podcast being on a podcast, so I don't know what I'm doing either.
Well, see, this is my second time I think leading the conversation, and I think and sometimes it's like a little hard for me because I get sidetracked a little bit. I would hope that I stuck a good format overall.
I feel like we had a great conversation.
But I do appreciate like you helping redirect the conversation back.
You're good. I was just like, okay, like how let's tie this back to wait. Do you mind if I do my plug?
Oh yes, of course.
Okay.
Please.
So I don't know if you have a fan name for your podcasters yet.
I don't think we're
the little pomegranate seeds that are watching.
We'll cross that hill.
We'll workshop that. Yeah. We'll workshop that. But if you're watching this and anything that I said resonated with you, I started a Substack newsletter a couple months ago called The Film Fanatic. Hopefully you can put that on the...
Can you send me like the title like properly spelled?
Yeah, so it's like The Film, my last name is Van, like the vehicle, but with an extra N. So the Film Fanatic /substack.com, I think she'll put the URL on there. But anyway, like I have a newsletter that you can get in your inbox every week with my latest film opinions.
No, thank you. And yeah, please check out the newsletter. I hope that you like this podcast enough that you'll want to watch the third episode, which will be centered on the show Baby Reindeer. And yeah, I'll have a new guest. It's a surprise. But, please tune in. And, I'm hoping Dustin will want to come back. We could always do a Wicked Part 2.
There will be a Part 2 coming soon.
And we definitely need to do an It Ends With Us episode. We'll definitely have to be very careful
somewhere down the road when things have become a bit clearer.
See, I'm no longer on TikTok, so I don't know how that's going. Or I'm really honestly not on most social media now, so I have no clue if there's such because I know from where I ended up, they were suing each other.
Yeah, we'll get into that in another episode. Thank you, Jen, for having me.
Thank you for being here.
This is great.
And yeah, please be tuned in for the next episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.